Good afternoon. Welcome to another Red Cloud webinar. We hope you're all keeping well. My name is Paul Lestrito. I'm the president of Red Cloud Securities. We're seeing a number of precious metal equities that have been outperforming over the course of the last several weeks as central banks around the world have been pumping liquidity into the system to combat the negative impacts of the pandemic. And now there's speculation as to whether or not that's been enough and whether there's going to be another round of stimulus in order to combat this unprecedented situation we're all in here. One of the companies that's benefited immensely from that is the company that's presenting today, Tanzanian Gold. As the market has run hard over the last 8 weeks, the market is now starting to look further down the food chain from the large cap producers, looking for value and value opportunities from the standpoint of names that haven't run as hard. And Tanzanian Gold is currently focusing on an oxide gold production and generating cash flow from their small oxide operation, and concurrently looking to publish a feasibility study on their 2 million ounce resource in Tanzania. The focus of the study will be to target something in the range of 150 to 175,000 ounces a year from an open pit, and there's potential for future underground as well. This is very similar to the nearby Bulyanhulu mine that's owned by Barrick. And in fact, it was actually sold to them by the chairman of Tanzanian Gold back in the day. As a result of being in the country for so many years, Tanzanian Gold has a very strong relationship with the Tanzanian government. And here to tell us about the opportunity is the CEO, Jeff Duvall of Tanzanian Gold. So I'm going to go over here the format of today's webinar. I'll be asking a poll question. So I'm going to ask attendees to answer the poll question. I will provide the answer to the poll question at the end of the Q&A session in approximately 35 to 40 minutes. And then we're going to have Jeff provide an introduction to the company, an overview of the project, the investment thesis, and the corporate vision on what they're working on. And then we'll go live to a Q&A session, and we'll get to as many of the questions as we possibly can during that process. As part of this, and this is the boring part, I'm going to have to handle some disclosure items here. So there's going to be many forward-looking statements on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary notes contained within the corporate presentation and located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that the webinar is for information purposes only, and it should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before making an investment. With regards to specific disclosures to Tanzanian Gold, in the last 12 months preceding this webinar, Red Cloud Securities has been retained under a service or advisory agreement by the issuer. So the poll question's been posted. I will now, it gives me great pleasure to pass it over to Jeff Duvall, the CEO of Tanzanian Gold. Jeff, over to you. Jeff, can you see it?
I can see it, and I finally hear you now.
Okay, good. Over to you.
All right. Thank you, Paolo. My name is Jeff Duvall. It's my pleasure to give you our corporate presentation on our our flagship Buck Reef project. I hope to, in the next 30 minutes, give an indication of why we believe is going to be the next big mine development in Tanzania. There's our cautionary notes. Vision for 2020 and beyond. In 2018, we completed our pre-feasibility study, which showed a nice project, about 951,000 ounces, good internal rate of return of about 74%, and a nice net present value after tax of 131 million plus or minus. At the completion of that project, Jim went to Uli and asked Uli, what exactly do we have at Buck Reef? And Uli has gone on over the last 2 years to design an intricate exploration program as well as a development program for the oxides. And as you can see, and as you will see, we're currently working on 3 separate working tracks. One is the continued exploration, infill drilling, and upgrade of measured and indicated ounces. The second one is de-risking of the project by completing a oxide mine, or an oxide development or oxide plant, small, to throw off some significant cash flow to help with the funding of the third and final track, which is the definitive feasibility study, in which we're targeting 150 to 175,000 ounces a year. This is a brief history of where we were in 2014, an M&I of 1.2. As of 2020, we have an M&I of just a little over 2 million. At a low discovery cost of about $6 an ounce. We have about 695 ounces of inferred, which we believe will be easily upgradable with some more infill drilling. And as well, we have up to another 2 million in 43-101 exploration targets that we'll be identifying. So what we are, we're emerging gold producer with substantial growth potential. As I mentioned earlier, we have about 2.4 million M&I, or inferred resources of 635,000 ounces, which we believe can be upgraded rather easily. We have exploration targets, and we continue with our phase 3 drill program targeting deep underground mineralization in excess of 1,100 meters. We've got holes down to about 1,200 meters below surface right now. We've staged the development to help de-risk the project. We look at this thing as 2 separate projects. One is going to be the oxide plant. We have about 3% of our mineralization is oxide material, which is the surface friable material. We believe that there's about approximately 7 to 10 years of material that we have on site that we could utilize and exploit. The second will be the sulfide material, which is down deeper, and that's the one that would be the subject of the definitive feasibility study at 150 to 175,000 ounces a year. Phase 1, we've already started. We developed a small 5-ton plant for testing purposes. That plant is now operational, and we've begun testing as of about 3 weeks ago. We plan to expand the plant in Q4 of this year, and another expansion later on in 2023 to 22-23. That expansion may actually be moved up depending on how things go. And then concurrently with that, we're working on the feasibility study. We've sent metallurgical samples off to SGS. They're currently looking at those and working on the completion of the flow sheet. We've got a solid government relationship. Jim's been in Tanzania for about 30 years and has a very, very good working knowledge of them and their operations, and things seem to be going quite well. This is the Pierre Lassonde model we're probably all familiar with. If I were to look at it, A would be my oxide plants, B would be the sulfide plant, and C would be the exploration potential that we have and we continue to have. This is probably my favorite chart on here. It's how we stand out versus comparable assets. Where you want to be is in that lower right quadrant where you've got the high-grade, low-cost producers. Right now, based on our pre-feasibility, we're right there on the margin. And a few things that we're doing in this definitive feasibility is continue to drill to upgrade and optimize our grade. The second thing was the rock mechanics testing and geotechnical testing through SGS to determine the rock hardness. SGS came back with some good results, and we're targeting the opportunity to steepen the pit walls in order to reduce the stripping ratio, which will significantly save on the operating expenses, the operating expenses. And third would be targeting a higher throughput plant, which we've also done by targeting 150 to 175,000 ounces per year. This is a comparable company analysis. It's pretty self-explanatory. Capital structure, we have about 85% retail, 15% management, friends, and family. As you can see, over the course of the last few months, liquidity has drastically increased, and a lot of that's due to not only what we're doing on the ground, but the increase in the price of gold. We have a proven leadership team. Mr. Sinclair is the executive chairman. Jim's been, like I said, been in Tanzania for 30 years. He and some other group, some other guys were in Sutton Resources. He was the chairman. They were able to find the Bulyanhulu project. They ultimately sold that to Barrick, and Jim's got a long and storied history in the gold market, owning different types of brokerages and that kind of thing. My name is Jeff Duvall. I'm the acting chief executive officer. I'm a licensed general contractor. My experience is in earthworks, construction, and project management. Uli Roth is our director/technical director. Uli's got over 40 years experience in the mining industry across North South America and South America and South Africa. He's been a former president, CEO, director of numerous companies. Uli's put 5 projects into production, the biggest being a $2 billion project down in Peru. Giancarlo Voller is our director of operations in Africa. John's been living in Tanzania and East Africa for well over 30 years. He's got significant experience. He's heavily involved with our government relations, our managements, and logistics. The project is in the Lake Victoria Greenstone Belt. Greenstone Belt, not unlike what you'd find in northern Canada or even Australia. A couple of our neighbors are Bulyanhulu as well as the Gator Gold Mine. What we're talking today is our flagship Buckreef Gold Project. The Buckreef Project encompasses the Buckreef main prospect, South Pit, Bingwa, Tembo, and Eastern Porphyry. What we're concentrating on today primarily is the work we've done on the Buckreef main, or what we like to call the Buckreef Shear Zone. This is what we spent the last year and a half developing. It's our surface gold mineralization surface map. We have 1,200 meters of gold mineralization at surface. We're still open to the northeast. Let me turn this on. To the northeast here, and we're open down dip. So we have significant exploration targets. Our last drill program extended that northeast extension another 300 meters. So things are looking quite well there. We've got in that model over 140,000 meters of information, from rock types to shear zones, seismic zones. The drill information that we garner. The mineralization is the red, as you can see through there. Pretty spectacular little model. Something that most juniors wouldn't accomplish. This is something that you even some majors may not even have, in my opinion. What we've done in the last year is we've doubled the measured and indicated. As you can see, measured's a little under 1.3 million at a grade of 1.99. Indicated is 755,000 at 1.48. We do have an inferred of 635,000 ounces, which I stated earlier. We think a large majority of that can be easily upgraded through an infill drilling program. And then we have 43-101 exploration targets that we're going to continue to work with. In April, we started our pre-stripping on our standalone oxide project. That project is moving along quite well. Initial production was expected in May. It actually, due to some issues, got pushed into June. But the plant is up and moving and working quite well. This is a little shot of the starter pit that we developed. Something to take a look at. Picture of the plant. Nice Mintech was selected to construct the 5-ton. We were able to use some of the equipment that was on site to lower the costs and get this project up and running. The plant's going to be used for testing and material handling and liquid density, so in order to determine the final flow sheet for our expansion plan for later on this year. The Buckreef Gold Project, as we advance towards feasibility, we've got a couple things that we've done. When we put together that starter pit, we did not only did we do 18,000 meters of drilling for the infill and the phase 2 drilling, but we did another 7,500 meters of grade control drilling to determine exactly where the mineralization's at and how it stood in the ore body. From that information, we were able to determine that the gold mineralization through the grade control drilling was 18 to 22% higher than what we found in the wider space resource grading or the resource drilling. So which was a nice surprise. The phase 3, I have another little bit more of that grade control drilling to complete on this phase 3 part, but that'll come once I get a road relocated. The met work, we sent off met samples to our technical advisors, SGS groups. We've got SGS Bateman, SGS Canada, and that includes their different various corporations that are in there. We've sent them 3 metallurgical samples. They're working on those samples as we speak, and as they work with that, they're going to try and work together the final feasibility flow sheet for what a 150 to 175,000 ton per day or per year plant would look like. If you look over here to this side, right here, while we had the rock mechanic, the samples at the rock mechanics test, we had them do a stage 1 stope design. They came back with some good news that we have clearly the ability to do an underground operation with that will be able to do a double stack and stopes, as well as easy drilling, which would allow us to utilize some larger equipment in the functioning of that underground. What we intend to do is, as we further this definitive feasibility, is take the underground information to like a stage 2 design. We won't complete that stage 2 design in the feasibility study. We're going to primarily target a much larger open pit to start with, but we'll bring this along to the point where we can see what it's going to be and see how it will interface with that open pit, and then make allocations for it as we design the plant, and so that it won't be a surprise. It won't be a complete rebuild when that becomes available to utilize it. The plant will already have the necessary provisions to do what needs to be done. This is the Buck Reef exploration to depth. If you look at this, you can see the outline of the old pit. Here's the ore body in the center, and it's been pretty well extensively drilled. We have good information on that. Our phase 2 drilling was this red line right here, this red circle, where we targeted 250 to 500 meters below the pit. We had significant success with that. We're currently on our phase 3 drill program, which is these big long white lines that run down the side here. And like I said earlier, our deepest hole to date is about 1,250 meters from surface. Oops, let me clear that. Let me go back. Clear. Our preliminary forecast is that we're going to develop this oxide plant this year, which is basically the oxide ore. It's about the first 25 meters of material. It's thin, it's friable, it's got some clay into it, and thus we're doing a little bit of testing on this gravity leach CIL plant with the test material so that we can finalize on that flow sheet. SGS has got the materials needed so that they can check out what's required for the initial flow sheet for the processing of the sulfide ores, and make a recommendation as to the type of plant that would be. SGS has come to us and we put it out in a news release and said that they believe we could target a plant to 150 to 175,000 ounces of annual production. They're currently working on that conceptual flow sheet, and have passed along that they believe it'll be one of 2 either a gravity separation with a gravity tailing sinudations or a gravity step followed by a sulfide flotation. The upcoming feasibility will incorporate the results of that information, as well as the phase 3 drill program and the geotechnical assessment, along with our ongoing metallurgical testing. And these flow sheets constitute low cost and attractive alternatives for our project. Let me go one more. Our ESG key focus: environmental, social, and governance. We're trying to maintain a low carbon footprint by utilizing as much grid power as we can. All our sites are to be certified by the International Cyanide Management Code, and all suppliers must also be certified. Simple mining and recovery operation minimizes our environmental risks and impact. Social, we're strengthening relations by granting land packages with the artisanals. We contribute towards our community development through our royalties. We maintain 100% local workforce and are committed to local procurement. We provided some of our local villages with water boreholes recently. Some stuff that's been done in the past. We've provided for the economic sustainability of the locals, 18 maize mills. Also, the development of the Bulin Hospital was done by Mr. Sinclair, and an orphanage in Kambanga that was rebuilt for Mother Teresa's school was taken care of. As far as governance, board of directors and management have extensive mining experience. Audit and compensation committees comprised only of independent directors. Annual performance evaluation using the GRI sustainability standards, and zero tolerance for corruption. Let me go back. So why Tanzanian? Well, we currently have 2 million of M&I, 635,000 ounces inferred, which we believe can be easily upgraded, or a portion of that easily upgraded into M&I through some infill drilling. We have up to 2 million ounces of 43-101 compliant exploration resources. So we've got a significant resource base to draw from, as well as significant blue sky and upside potential with our exploration. We've de-risked the project by constructing a smaller oxide plant that we intend to make as large as we possibly can, as quick as we possibly can, through a staged expansion. And we're working on the definitive feasibility study for the upcoming for the plant, the 175,000 ounces sulfide plant. So we have a lot of exciting things going on. There's a lot going on as far as the 3 different work programs. Uli and his team and our management team have been busy incorporating all of these things, integrating all of these things together. And I believe our long-term potential is phenomenal. That's it. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Jeff. Can you hear me? Just want to make sure my mic's working. Okay, good. Excellent. There's a whole plethora of questions coming in. The chat line is just on fire here with the number of participants on. Just before I get onto the questions, I would like to remind everybody about the poll question to answer it if you haven't already. As an ex-mining analyst, I'm surprised at some of the answers already, so I want to make sure that I am looking at this correctly. So if you haven't answered the poll question, please do. So let's start with a question here. First one's from Robert. As production progresses, you expect to pay dividends, and can these dividends be paid in physical gold?
Well, that's something that Mr. Sinclair has spoken of long and hard. I believe that's still in our mindset of to take care of. But yeah, Jim has talked about that in the past extensively.
Okay. And how do you plan to finance your, I guess, the oxide expansion is what the question is here from Gord.
The oxide expansion?
Yes.
Well, we're currently out seeking funding for that oxide expansion, and we're looking to do as much debt instrument as we possibly can to help minimize the dilution. that's kind of the direction that we have, and that's why we've hired the financial advisors that we've done.
Okay. Next question is from Ed. If management should decide to process ore and pour bars, would they only sell the amount necessary to fund the cost and stockpile the remainder, or would you plan on returning dividends to the shareholders? I think that's a similar question that you answered earlier.
Yeah, it's similar, and it's something that Jim has talked long and hard about.
Okay.
He's spent a lot of time on both of those options, and as long as he's still chairman and running things, I believe that's his intention.
Okay. Fred has another question. When is the first gold pour? My understanding is the oxide plant has been operating now for a couple of weeks. So maybe use that as a launch point to give everybody a little bit of an update on how the oxide plant is doing.
The oxide plant has been working for about 3 weeks now. A little, when everything you start takes a little bit of time to get things rolling. I suspect that we will have something available as far as when we first poured gold shortly.
Okay. At these gold prices, this is a question from Thomas. At these gold prices, there seems to be financing available for these types of projects. Is there a way to use financing to push the project ahead of schedule in the near term? So I guess it's just been asking whether or not there's an opportunity to accelerate things.
That is something that we're looking at, definitely.
Okay. Another question here from Todd. Do you have a project target date when you will have full production for mining the gold? Thank you. I think Todd's referring to probably the sulfide.
I'm going to assume the sulfide is going to be a few years out before we get to any definitive information on that. The oxides, like I said, the 5 ton is working. Basically, the test plant is working. We're developing that flow sheet. We've got SGS Bateman working with us to finalize on that flow sheet, so that when we upgrade the plant, we know exactly what we think what it's going to do and how it's going to operate, and we're not going to lose much time in commissioning that plant.
Okay, so maybe I can answer that a little bit for you, because as a company, I know you can't answer that definitively, but as an ex-analyst. So Todd, normally when you're doing a feasibility study, you finalize the feasibility study, then you're in the phase of actually seeking the capital in order to build, assuming the permits are in place. I think you guys are well along the permitting process because of the relationship that you have with the government.
Yeah,
so
we're already permitted.
Process. So pre-COVID, a project of this size would probably take somewhere in the range of 15 to 18 months to build. So once the shovels go in the ground, that's probably the timelines you should expect, Todd, but that's pre-COVID, assuming there's nothing on that front. And I'm hoping by the time that that's the case, that COVID is long behind us. George, another question here from George. When would dividends be paid? So I think that kind of ties into the answer that I gave earlier. You kind of want to pour that growth capital into actually building the thing.
Correct.
Okay, another question with regards to shares outstanding. That was on page 9 of the presentation. So roughly about 175,000 shares outstanding in the current market. What is Tanzanian gold doing for the locals in Tanzania?
What are we doing for the locals? Well,
I don't know if it's a statement. I don't know if it's a statement or a question, because it's Derek is basically saying what TAN is doing for the locals in Tanzania is awesome. So it's more of a statement more than a question. Cool. So let me take that back.
Our CSR for our locals is quite well. We would run 100% Tanzanian operation, as well as incorporate the nearby villages whenever we possibly can. And we've also, we're not averse to providing clean water and that kind of stuff to them, which is what we've been doing recently.
Okay. Question from, I'm going to probably butcher this, so I apologize to this individual. Wei Ching. What is the basis for the estimate of the sulfide production? So you kind of touched on it, that was the technical group, but you may want to reiterate that for Wei Ching's benefit.
The basis of that number comes from what the engineers at our technical partners think we can start out with. Maybe it goes a little bigger, but it's going to be somewhere in that range, I suspect. That's a total function of metallurgy and that kind of thing.
Okay. Robert's question: how solid is financing going forward? And I think that they are referring to your statement about the oxide.
I think our financing going forward is very solid. We have a great project, and I think we're going to be able to do what we want to do as a management team.
Yeah. How long to build the plant? This is from Thomas again. How long to build the plant that will produce 150 to 175,000 ounces? And again, I know you guys can't answer that. Again, my experience, I'll answer on behalf of the company. My experience as an analyst on a project of this side, assuming that you have permits in hand, feasibility in hand, and financing in hand, that these things take anywhere from 15 to 18 months. Again, that was pre-COVID. So, you have to manage these things in this day and age, but I'm hoping by the time shovels go in the ground that this will be long past us. This is from James, has the oxide plant actually produced Dory bars yet?
Yes.
Okay. Another question here. What is the probability of brownfield exploration with the current administration and relationships with the government?
We have plenty of targets on our Buck Reef project to last us quite a few years. We're not really even looking at anything other than what we have right at the moment.
Okay. Question from Ed. I know this is a gold operation, but is there any silver component to this?
Not in that we've found in an economic sense yet. No.
Yeah, it's in the back. It's like a background mineralization that shows up in the doré.
Yeah,
that's what typical of greenstone. It's the same with the Kirkland Lake and Timmins guys. Okay, beginning with this is a question from Craig. Beginning with the 5 ton per hour plant, what are the levels of upgrades that you guys are contemplating before jumping to the larger 150 to 175,000 ounce sulfide plant?
The levels we're looking at right now is 15 to 40.
Okay. So if I remember my math correctly, the 5 ton an hour translates to about 100 tons a day, and you're looking to increase it to about 300 to 400 tons a day.
And then if you went to the 40 ton would be about 960 ton a day.
Okay. Another question from Jeff. When will the phase 3 drill program finish, and when will we know the results?
The phase 3 program, as I announced, or as I said in the presentation, will probably be dealt with or delineated in the definitive feasibility. It's going along right now, and they keep funding additional exploration targets to target. So as long as Uli has interest to drill, we're going to continue to drill. Okay.
Question from Christopher. Has there been any impact by COVID?
No, none. We actually are following the general recommended guidelines for COVID, testing, washing hands, that kind of face masks and stuff like that. We have a very active health and safety program going on site who keeps track of all that. So no, we have not had any impact due to the COVID.
Okay. This is going to be hard for you to answer because you don't actually have a published study. But I'll ask it anyways, and we can deflect or at least talk to maybe some of the inputs like the grade that you're dealing with here. So a question from Craig, what is your current all-in sustaining cost? And it seems that your internal rate of return is exceptional. And I know that you don't have a published study on the oxide plant.
Yeah, so I have nothing. Yeah, we have nothing on the oxide. The stuff that we had in the pre-fees was pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, that's kind of that's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, I wouldn't answer it directly. How I would say is our strip ratio is
strip ratio is less than 5.
Right, and that's down from the previous study. Your oxide grade is a little bit higher than what you originally expected. So
Sure.
let's say it's north of 2.5 grams per ton on your oxide.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And so typically with oxide material, you don't use as much energy to drill and blast. And in this case, it's probably free digging.
It's free digging, yes.
And then your process plant has less crush capability. So your costs are going to be substantially lower on the oxide side of things. So I guess, Craig, this is the way to answer it. Our analyst at Red Cloud did a report and looked and did some guesstimates on what this might look like. And so that report can be found on our website. And so maybe that's the right way to answer it, Jeff, is to say, look at the report that Red Cloud did.
That's probably the easiest way to do that.
Yeah, and Craig, if you have any follow-up questions, I know Jacob is open to taking those questions if you have any follow-up. Question from Hugo. Do you have any royalties on the project?
Well, we have royalties that we pay to the government of 7.3%, but other than that, no.
Okay.
And then we have our agreement that we have with Stomico, but that's corporate.
That's a joint venture.
Yes.
Yeah. Question from Jason. Can you clarify the financial interest that the Tanzanian gold has on the project versus the government?
The financial interest? Yeah, we have a
55, like the percentage ownership.
55 to 45, yes.
Yeah, and okay, so again, that's in the report as well in terms of
that's in this should be in the Red Cloud report as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was another question with regards to COVID and the preventative measures you're taking in terms of having procedures in place on site. There's another question here that's talking about how the stock should react if the gold prices go substantially higher. I would again point you to the Red Cloud report because there's some sensitivity analysis done there at higher gold prices and lower gold prices for that matter, just to be on balanced in our view. But there's some pretty good leverage here. When are we expecting drill results? Is the next question.
Well, they're always continuing to drill. I would suspect that we'll have something in 30, 45 days, possibly.
Okay. There's another question from Rosacita about the estimate on what the sulfide plant would cost. Again, I would direct them to the Red Cloud report in terms of the estimates that were used there. It's not 100%, but we've been doing this for a long time, so we've got a pretty good guesstimate there, but the final cost will be outlined in the feasibility study when that comes out. How many ounces of gold will the oxide plants produce a year? So that's actually a great question from Jeff.
I got it. It's in the presentation. We're anticipating 7,000 to 10,000 ounces a year.
Okay. Gary's question: when would you anticipate profitability? And this is, I guess, related to the oxide plant.
Related to the oxide plant, once that plant is up and operational, I would say, if I had to put a month thing on it, you're probably talking a year or so. Sometime a year from now.
Okay. Let me make sure. I recall 2 column-shaped ore bodies extending at depth at Bug Reef. Do you know yet if both ore bodies can be mined from one shaft in the time that comes for the underground, when it comes time for the underground mining? That's from Neil.
I can't answer that. That's something a little further down the road.
Okay, so question from Thomas. Here, so you were there again talking about the funding, and you already talked about going down the path of as much debt as possible. So that's okay. Does a sale of the operation to a major be an eventuality? This is from Ed.
I don't know if it's an eventuality or not. We're right now focused on development of the oxide and moving on to the sulfide. So, is it possible? I guess anything's possible. Right now, we're focused on completing this thing to the end.
Okay. There's a few people asking about the target price and about the report. So Ashish did a good job, and he posted a link to the report in the chat here. Will you have enough cash from existing gold production to fund the operating expense without selling additional stock? And again, that's a loaded question because you're looking to finance the oxide expansion with a debt component, and so that's the best way to answer that question, Thomas.
Yeah.
So stay tuned there. Rosanna. For now, it seems that the trend in gold is up. How will higher gold prices impact financial needs for the project? And will there be a possibility of returning a benefit to long-term shareholders? I guess she means a dividend. So again, Roseanne, I would direct you to the report that we've published. This is our best guess in terms of the sensitivity of the project to the gold price based on our experiences over the years. Jacob's a geologist. I'm a geological and mineral engineer with a focus on rock mechanics. When will you update the current 43-101?
Is that the question? When will we update the current 43-101?
Yeah.
That will be updated once we complete the information required for the feasibility study.
Okay. And then there's a question here from Jeff. How can we obtain a copy of the Red Cloud report? It's been posted on the chat. If you can't see it in the chat, just go to our website. Our research is free. Just log on and comb through our research. And I think Ashish has posted it again here. So please feel free to click on that link. Why does it seem? Does your change in transfer agent imply any action on the part of holders of certs and DRS? That's a question from Robert. I don't know if there was a change in your.
We did change our transfer agent, but I hold shares just as much as probably as many as anybody else in certificate form. I believe the change is materially satisfactory to not only past shareholders but current shareholders. We're going to get a much better service from the new transfer agent.
Okay, great question from John. What is the greatest risk that you're trying to mitigate over the next several quarters? It's a good question. Very good question.
The greatest risk?
Yeah,
risk that we're trying to mitigate.
Yeah, I mean, I know Uli's focused on getting the plant humming along.
That's really our key focus. I mean, we're focused on three things. We've got three things going on: development of the plant, get that final flow sheet done so that we can upgrade that plant in a satisfactory manner. Continue the drilling program. We've been drilling over 2 years now and haven't stopped. And complete that feasibility study. And that's all part and parcel of what we're putting together.
Okay. Keith has another question. Is there a exit plan or an exit strategy in place?
An exit strategy for what? A sale of the business? I mean, like I said earlier,
the path that you guys are going through, the exit strategy is generate lots of cash and pay a dividend.
That's kind of the exit strategy.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if the right offer comes along, management and the board would consider it, right?
I think you have to look at everything, but I think that right now the goal is to get both plants done and operational.
Okay. There's a question from Mike about outlining the debt plan and rescheduled payments. and whatnot. But I think that you have to wait till that gets announced as opposed to kind of signaling that at this point in time.
Yeah.
How many oxide plants are required to produce 7,000 to 10,000 ounces a year? That's a question from Joseph.
One.
Yeah. And the plant,
one plant with either one or two upgrades.
Yeah. Okay. Does Howard is having problems opening the report, Ashish. So I don't know what the issue is there. So Howard, feel free to email Jacob or log on to our website to gain. Maybe we can help you technically, but it is available to the public. So I'm sorry that you're having problems with the link. Who is the new transfer agent? That's a question from Ron.
The new transfer agent's Odyssey out of Vancouver.
Okay. And then Alan is asking for you guys to post more pictures. So that's just more of a statement.
Okay, noted.
Here we go. I'm still going through this. They're coming in faster than I can read them.
Jeez.
Will there be a recording available of this interview? Yes, there will be, Christopher. Gianluca was asking if there was anything that keeps you up at night. You've already answered that. And then Christopher basically confirmed that he was able to download the report and it works. So thank you for Christopher. I'm glad that works. Jeff, I've got a couple of questions here, and then we'll look at the poll answer. Sorry, turn off my phone here. So maybe you want to kind of talk to, what type of news flow investors should be expecting kind of over the next 3 to 6 months.
Well, I'm expecting some additional information coming from the drill program. We're also looking at that inferred resource there at what is it? Not resource, but the inferred category. We're looking to upgrade that. So there's going to be some type of drill program that we're putting together to try and capture some of that and upgrade it to indicated or even measured, depending. So I would suspect there'd be some news flow from that. I'm looking forward to development of either a 15 or a 40 plant, ton per hour plant. So that's going to be some news flow coming from there, and I suspect we'll have something out on that relatively quickly with what we intend to do there. So I think that would probably take care of the next 3 to 6 months. Is those two particular items? Okay.
There's a few people suggesting that the Red Cloud report used the 2018 pre-feasibility study. My recollection is that it used some of the data from the 2018 pre-feasibility study, but that in fact it incorporated some of the elements of where the project was going. So I don't. I'll take another look at it. That's to Joseph and some of the other people that brought that up, but I'm pretty sure it's a forward-looking guesstimate on what the project is going to look like, i.e. the feasibility study when it gets published kind of sometime next year. But if there's any questions, again, feel free to reach out. The intention here is to be very transparent with our assumptions. Okay, so with that, let me go to the poll question. And like I said, I am very shocked at some of the number or the answers that I've got here. So the poll question, just so everybody can hear it, what would you like Tanzanian Gold to focus on most regarding the future strategy? And so the four answers that I had posted is A, highest annual production rate for the feasibility study, B, highest internal rate of return for the feasibility study, C, drill and expand the deposit, and D, focus on the oxide production and expand the existing plant. So I was surprised. The number one answer is C, drill and expand the deposit. And then the second most popular answer was the highest annual production rate for the feasibility study, which was 27% of the respondents. The drill and expand was about 36% of the respondents. So over half of the respondents are in those two categories.
Mm-hmm.
The third most popular answer at 18%, so ways away from the first two, is just focus on the oxide production and expand the existing plant. And then the least popular item is focus on the highest internal rate of return for the feasibility study. And as an analyst, I can tell you that my number one answer is actually the least popular one, because that's what drives your share price. So it's amazing to see that everybody's focused on drilling and expanding the deposit.
Expanding the deposit.
Yeah, expanding the deposit is great because you get a bump in NAV if you find more. Fully support that.
What's nice about us is we're open to the northeast. We're open down dip. It's not like we're poking holes in an unknown quantity here. We know what we're going after, and it's pretty cut and dried. I like that one.
Yeah, so there you go. So you're the investor base is spoken. They're telling you to drill more.
I'll tell Uli that.
2 million ounces is not enough.
Yeah, well, we've got a few more ounces that we can target, and up to another 2.2 plus whatever else we find. So yeah, we're well on target here.
All right, so Jeff, that concludes the presentation and the webinar. Thank you everybody for attending. I know there was a number of questions I didn't get to. It's just because there was just a litany and we'd be here for hours. If you could kindly, reach out to either Jacob or myself if you've got any questions with regards to the report or our assumptions. We're happy to answer any of those questions. I know that we couldn't get to all of them today, and certainly I'm sure the company is open to getting that feedback. So I'll pass it over to Jeff if you have any closing remarks.
No, I think we have a really, really exciting time ahead for us. We're operating, or we're hitting on all cylinders. We're operating across 3 working projects, and each one of them is progressing nicely. I believe the future is extremely bright, and that we will become, the next big thing in Tanzania.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paolo. Appreciate it.
Bye.